out on a date with a guy makes me a slut, then that's just what I'm going to be.
I don't think going out on a date makes you a slut, but having sex with different men makes you a slut.
Well, what does it make you if you have sex with different women?
A slut maker. Men
Checkmate.
don't want sluts as wives and mothers of their children.
Who cares? You can't live your life for no man. It's not about
really?
men. Who cares about men? If I sat here and lived my life for a man, I would be miserable.
Wow.
But you do understand that a man would not want a slut to be the mother of his children.
That's
right?
not true because...
Not real men.
Right. Not real men. That's
What
true.
is a
Slut
real
man
man,
would.
Jesse? What is a real man? You?
Yes.
Yes.
I understand. And my actual statement is we have yet to obtain the original post, and the employees' social media accounts appear to be deleted. From what we can gather online, the following is the basic rundown.
Yes. So would you not deem it relevant that the person gathering online is in the video, the person in question said, these are my posts. Of course, these are my posts. Is that not relevant?
Should be relevant.
I suppose that it is, and I'm happy to quote you on that. Is that, yes.
No, don't quote me. Quote them on it. You said you've seen the video. Quote them on it. Them saying, of course, those are my posts. I don't need you to quote me. This person said it. It's on camera. Is that in question? Are you disagreeing with me on that? I'm confused here.
I never said that I disagreed with you.
So then why
Please
is
do
it
not
in there?
put words in my mouth.
So then what is the issue here? Don't quote me. Quote the person in question who said, of course, this is my post. Otherwise, it's activism, not journalism.
That's so true.
Otherwise, it is activism, not journalism.
She didn't like that at all.
Okay. Do you consider yourself a journalist?
No.
Okay.
How about you?
What
Do you?
under this, sir? I do not appreciate the sarcasm.
No,
I don't
do you?
appreciate their sarcasm.
of course I
Please
am.
don't trigger me.
Okay. Well, it was not sarcastic at all. I wasn't quite sure from this conversation. I thought maybe you were an op-eds person, which is totally fine. I have no problem with someone who's an op-ed writer, who's an opinion writer. I have no problem with that if it's clearly, explicitly stated in the piece.
I understand that, going back to it, you are upset that I mentioned your height. But
No.
the entire...
What the hell? Who cares about my height?
No.
This
Okay,
girl is
well,
totally
can I finish,
whack.
please? I
Can I
understand that
finish,
you
please?
have
This is Savannah Hernandez for
Clearly, that journalist was having a problem here, getting the facts straight. Oh, that's a stretch, isn't it? A journalist that doesn't quote the people that's giving the facts to them, but decides to print something completely different, talk about something that doesn't even have anything to do with it. Oh, that's never going to happen, right? Ever. You're never going to get misquoted. No, that's never going to happen. The story that you actually gave them is not the one that they're going to write about. They're going to do and turn around and write about what they want to write about. They want to take the narrative. They want to fit that narrative puzzle piece into the right spaces. That's what they want to do. And that's exactly what happened here with Stephen.
We're out here on the streets of Austin today to ask people what they think about the Trump-Putin summit and if they're buying the mainstream media lie that President Trump betrayed the U.S. Do you think that President Trump betrayed our whole country during the Trump-Putin summit yesterday?
Yes. Yeah, but not our country because I'm not from here. But yeah, I think he betrayed the U.S.
Absolutely.
How come?
Because he denied the efficacy of our own
Efficacy?
security apparatus. And he indeed prefers the Soviet approach, the Russian approach, to the solutions of the world. It's just preposterous.
Another person clearly with TDS. Trump derangement syndrome. No doubt about it, folks. If I didn't know better, and if this guy, I'd say this is Kamala Harris's stepbrother. The word salad he was putting out there. I didn't understand what the hell he was talking about. He didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But that's what happens when you're dealing with these people that have Trump derangement syndrome. They're all over the place, no clue what they're talking about, make stuff up, and if they don't make it up, guess what they do? They make it up even more. Let's continue.
Aside for one moment the debate about whether or not abortion is a constitutional right. I would submit that it is not. You can read the Constitution, squeeze lemon juice on it, hold it upside down, it's just not in there. But let's assume it was. Let's assume it was sort of invisibly there as part of the Bill of Rights. Right up there with free speech and right up there with the right to religion and the right to assembly and so on. Here's my question to you. Why should the abortion right be subsidized when none of our other fundamental rights are?
Wow. Nice. Very, yes.
I mean, you have a right
So
to free
true.
speech. Does the government give you money to start a newspaper? You have a
No.
Second Amendment right to own a gun. Is the government going to buy you a shotgun?
right.
You have a right to free assembly. You got to do it on your own time. You have a right to free exercise of religion. The government's not going to pay for your churches. So, since the government pays for none of our other fundamental rights, why does this right get to be in a category of itself?
The power to investigate.
Once again, Dinesh using that logic that he uses is just so strong. I mean, it hits you. Boom. Right there. Absolutely. Why should this right, the right to it, why should there be a right to an abortion? Because if you're going to go ahead and give money to this right, you're going to pay for this right, and you say that it's somewhere in the Constitution, it's in the Bill of Rights, it should be there, the pursuit to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then, as Dinesh so eloquently put, how come the other rights don't come with that, where the government is going to go ahead and pay for those rights as well? The difference is, folks, this is a women's issue. That's why. None of the other issues, I guess, are taken up in terms of internalizing it from a human's head. They have nothing to do with life. I mean, you can sort of go off on tangents and say, what about the gun control rights? What about the other rights or whatever? But this right to life, that's where the difference is. That's where they decide to basically say, no, it's a fundamental right to life. It's a fundamental right of a person's life, and they have the ability to run their life the way they see fit. Women, obviously, unless you're from the left now and changing that whole definition, and you're going to call it a birthing person. Now it would include those women that have this is always those women that have become men, trans men, and can still be pregnant. So if they want to have an abortion, they would say it's a fundamental right of men now to have an abortion as well, because men can have babies now. Right? I mean, right now, they don't hit the fact with biological men. They just call it a trans man. Trans men can have babies because they're not men anymore. I mean, they're men. See how it gets confusing? Even though you wrap your head around this crap and the linguistic lingo that goes along with the mental gymnastics that has to be played with the language, I mean, it gets to the point where you're looking at it and going, let's see here. It's just so much easier. Men are men, women are women. Anyways, let's continue.
The power to investigate, to search, to seize, to stop. The power to allege and accuse. The power to eavesdrop and intercept private communications. The power to look through bank records. The power to look through phone records. The power to even check what books you checked out of the library. These are awesome powers that must be used responsibly because those powers affect reputations and freedom. These awesome powers are given a correspondingly high expectation that these powers will be used fairly, lawfully, professionally, and in a manner worthy of our respect.
But they're not.
About 2 weeks ago, FBI agent Peter Strzok was interviewed for more than 10 hours. We learned that Agent Strzok has a most unusual and largely self-serving definition of bias. Agent Strzok, despite the plain language of his texts and emails, despite the Inspector General's report, and despite common sense, doesn't think he was biased. He thinks calling someone destabilizing for the country isn't bias. He thinks promising to protect the country from someone he hasn't even begun to investigate isn't bias. He thinks promising to stop someone he is supposed to be fairly investigating from ever becoming president isn't bias.
No, not at all.
Talking about an insurance policy to keep someone from becoming president isn't bias. That's for one of the folks he was investigating.
Remember all this stuff going on at that time, folks? Remember when they even, and you know what? It's the stuff came out, and yes, Trey Gowdy and other Republicans came out. They put this thing out there, but the pushback that you had from the left and the progressives and the alphabet networks out there. Did anything really happen to Peter Strzok? I mean, just while I think he was let go of the FBI and he's probably got a cushy job out there someplace, but as far as any serious consequences to his actions, where he was literally, he and his girlfriend, the other FBI agent, who's disappeared into obscurity as well. Nothing, folks. Nothing happens to people. No one is accountable to anything. Or if somebody is, it's like the lowest person on the totem pole. That's what happens.
He has a different set of rules for others that he's investigating. Agent Strzok thinks saying someone he is allegedly investigating should be elected president 100 million to 0 before he ever interviews her. He doesn't think that's bias. Agent Strzok thinks pronouncing someone innocent before bothering to interview more than 30 different witnesses isn't bias. He thinks claiming you can smell the Trump supporters isn't bias, but he doesn't say a single solitary word about being able to smell the support of any other candidate. To him, that isn't bias.
Why would it be?
Special Counsel Bob Mueller found out about Peter Strzok's texts and emails, he kicked him off of the investigation. But that was 1.5 years too late. The text and the emails may have been discovered in May of 2017, but the bias existed and was manifest 1.5 years before that, all the way back to late 2015 and early 2016. So it wasn't the discovery of texts that got him fired. It was the bias manifest in those texts that made him unfit to objectively and dispassionately investigate. So if the bias existed in late 2015 and early 2016, and it did, his unfitness to investigate existed then as well. Agent Strzok struggled to define bias for the better part of 10 hours. For the rest of us, bias is the prejudging of a person, a group, or a thing. It usually has a negative connotation, but it is a preconceived position or a prejudgment. It is the making up of your mind ahead of time based on anything other than the facts, and that is exactly what he did.
Prejudice.
Bias is saying Hillary Clinton should win the presidency 100 million to 0 when she was still under investigation, wasn't even the nominee, hadn't been interviewed, and 30 other witnesses had also not been interviewed. In March of 2016, Agent Strzok had Clinton winning 100 million to 0.
Remember
even
that,
though
folks?
The investigation was far from being over.
It hadn't even started,
that is
literally.
The prejudging of someone's innocence. before all the evidence is in.
But
On
what
the other
about
hand,
Trump?
he said Trump would be destabilizing, called him an idiot, abysmal, bigoted nonsense, called him a disaster, said he should F himself. Strzok promised to stop Trump from becoming president before the investigation even began. He talked longingly of Trump resigning 2 months after he was inaugurated and well before the special.
Just take a look at this guy here, this POS. He's listening to that thing, you know, come after. I don't even think these people really have a soul. I don't think they do. They're soulless. He's sitting there. He's literally getting, he's getting the crap kicked out of him in a congressional hearing. It's being watched by millions upon millions of Americans. And this is supposed to be a person who put on that badge, took that oath of office, FBI, probably it's at one time, it was one of the finest institutions in the world because it was apolitical to a certain degree. Now, yes, there have been people in the past that have used the FBI, unfortunately, for their own services or whatever. But all in all, most of the men and women, the foot soldiers, let's say, the everyday agents, they're good, decent, hardworking people. Most of them. But there are those that have been swayed by the upper echelon, those at the top, those with the real power, those with the field offices in charge of the divisions. They're the ones like Peter Strzok and others that have taken the FBI in a completely different direction and utilized it as their own little fiefdom, so to speak, their own little kingdom, where they could do whatever they wanted to do. And when they reported their superiors, some of them that they probably thought they couldn't bring into their inner circle, their inner sanctum of whatever ideas they held, they kept them in the dark. But many of their superiors were of the same thought process, the same ilk, the same way thinking as Peter Strzok. And those are the ones that allowed them to continue to go and move on forward. That is so true, folks, so true.
Special counsel investigation even began. Strzok even talked about impeachment the day special counsel was appointed.
Nice.
That is prejudging guilt, it is prejudging punishment, and it is textbook bias. We live in a 50-50 country, and we accept that. But we're a 100% country when it comes to having law enforcement that doesn't prejudge innocence before investigations are over and doesn't prejudge guilt and punishment before an investigation even begins. Agent Strzok had Hillary Clinton winning the White House before he finished investigating her. Agent Strzok had Donald Trump impeached before he even started investigating him.
Trey Gowdy literally laid him out, folks. Laid him out. Combination punches, uppercuts, blows to the body, rhetorically speaking, verbally, obviously. Literally skewered Strzok. And all Strzok could do was have that eaten grin on his face, basically, and listen to everything that he swore and uphold not to do is what he did. But that's because he was part of the TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome, folks. Anyways, we appreciate you taking the time to watch. You've been watching the Dr. Nasir Shaikh Show. Hope you enjoyed our reaction to this video. If you haven't done so already and you love our content, subscribe to the channel, like, share, and follow us. You all know what to do. Take a look at our other video links above and below. My final thought is always, when you're right, you're right. And when you're left, you're wrong. Until next time, folks, take care and stay safe.